We're just starting with the can opening sound. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Geek Addicts, the pop culture podcast where we trek across the Nevada desert with our band of friends that we found along the way and a dog. And yeah, things get wacky. I am Bill. This is Matt. How you doing, Matt?
Don't screw with my disco, Bill.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
about that
Yeah.
day.
It's been a week since we last recorded. I would say.
Yeah, usually is. Usually is.
Me and Alex somehow managed to do like 4 GNCs in that time frame, which is crazy, but
Damn.
stockpiling up just in case for a number of reasons. But yeah,
Understandable.
it's been a bit of a week. I've done I think literally all I did this week was podcast and watch movies.
I mean, that's not the worst way to spend a week.
Yeah, and not when other than when I was at work, of course. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
short weeks are always the longest.
I think I wrapped up season 1 of Inuyasha, or what Netflix classifies as season 1.
I mean, the Blu-ray DVD sets list them as seasons too,
All right.
but the official show length is considered one. The first
It's probably
167.
one of the same. Probably one of the same deals as like Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, where like there isn't technically seasons, but over here we got them as seasons. So
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, what Netflix classifies as season 1 is still longer than the average like season of an actual seasonal anime. So it's longer.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I meant to ask you, are we getting slightly less episodes of Apothecary Diaries this season? Because I've noticed like they've always been a few episodes ahead, but when I watched the last episode last weekend, there was only one more Japanese episode.
I think they're just they're caught up because it's still going to be 24 episodes.
Okay. I was gonna say, oh man, that not the one that came out today, but the one from last week. That was intense.
I haven't seen the one that came out yesterday, but yeah, the last week's episode. Holy shit, a lot.
Yeah, we got to see a whole different side of Jinshi.
Yeah, and we got some reveals, like, and some stuff that I called, particularly involving a certain consort. But yeah,
interesting.
Very
interesting. Why? I'm gonna be sad when the show, like when the season wraps up.
Yeah, I mean, it'll get a season 3. It's.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's
I don't want to wait for it. I've been enjoying the week to week adventure.
It's too popular, but still at the same time, it didn't get anime of the year.
But Solo Leveling did, and we might not see season 3 of that until 2028. So,
well, I mean, that's the funny part is like Apothecary Diaries not getting anime of the year was expected. I just didn't expect it to lose to Solo Leveling.
Well, I saw that I think Crunchyroll Solo Leveling won, and then I think IGN voted was it Freerun as anime of the year?
Freerun was the one that everyone was voting on.
It was always going to be one of the two. Let's be real.
Well,
honestly, like Don had a solid chance because just the hype surrounding that show has been ridiculous.
It's had a bit more of a lukewarm reception, though. I've noticed it didn't hit for everybody.
Yeah, well, I feel like, like I said, like Solo Leveling is like the perfect popcorn anime, and I feel like that's the most accessible out of all the ones that were nominated to like the wider audience.
It's also a bit the thing that a lot of people missed too was when the votes were happening, because it was for Solo Leveling season 1, which I find amusing because season 2 is infinitely better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people were just jumping off the hype of season 2. But even then, story-wise and like character-wise, Rerun and Apothecary Diaries should have won easily. Like Solo Leveling's a great action like show with a cool concept, but let's be fair, the characters aren't the greatest. Like they're fine, but they're not like what the competition had. So I understand the discord. Like I'm pretty sure most Solo Leveling fans were confused. Like they were like, huh?
Yeah, see, like at this point, like I kind of feel like I like Apothecary Diaries more than Freerun, but to be fair to Freerun, there's a whole extra season's worth of shit for Apothecary Diaries at the moment that I have in my mind while I'm making the comparison. Like maybe I'll feel differently when season 2 of Freerun comes out, But as of right now, I'm really, really digging Apothecary Diaries.
In terms of the things that were actually nominated, which was the first seasons of all three, Free Reign easily was the best of the three, but Apothecary Diaries so far with season 2 has been getting better and better.
See, I was thinking about the season twos of like Apothecary and Solo Leveling when I was looking at the nominees, so I didn't really consider that.
Yeah,
I'm
Free Reign.
surprised. I'm kind of surprised that Zenshu wasn't brought up at all because that was from last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Zenshu was fine, but like aside from being really pretty and having a fun story, it really doesn't do anything super
I mean, Solo Leveling is
remarkable.
really pretty and has a fun story, and that's about all it has going for it. So
Yeah, solo leveling's there's something about solo leveling though that I think hit differently.
that's fair. I don't know. I just feel like there's something to be said for like the one and done, you know, quick 12er and then put it away.
I think the thing with Zenshu was like as much as like I liked it and most people who watched it liked it, not everybody watched it.
That's fair. That's fair.
Um yeah, other than that though, I haven't watched much. Because
Yeah,
I've
it's
been
for me. It's
doing
pretty
it.
much just been the watching the topic for this week and Inuyasha. I also didn't have much opportunity to watch much else because I only worked 3 days this week. Even though I still worked 50 hours in those 3 days, which is fucking crazy. But
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's crazy. Um yeah, I don't know. Anything else you want to touch on? Should we just jump right in?
well, I mean, the only thing I can think of is that I'm a stone's throw away from finishing Mega Man X, which
Nice.
I wanted to try and have that beat before the game club started for next month, which is tomorrow. And I don't know if I'm gonna make it because I'm as soon as I get off of this, all my gaming is gonna be focused on FF7 Rebirth because I actually have the night to myself, which doesn't happen like ever. So
Hmm,
if I have the control of the TV and no one there to tell me that they want to do something else, then that's what I'm doing.
I get you.
But I was trying to figure out, like, I was playing around with some stuff last night, trying to figure out stream because my problem right now with streaming is because like, well, it is a two-part problem, and so my laptop can stream, right? It's a Chromebook, and that's like my biggest problem right there. Um, if I wanted to stream to Twitch or YouTube, it wouldn't be a problem. The fact is that I want to stream to Discord because I like having like the voice chat. I like being able to just have people hop on and just shoot the shit while I'm playing.
Hmm,
Um, and apparently, streaming to Discord is like the one thing the Chromebook is not great for. I mean, I don't want to say one thing because there's a lot of things regarding gaming that the Chromebook is not good for. But I'd be able to if I wanted to switch to Tweam, it would switch to stream to Twitch.
Twitch to stream.
Yeah, Twitch to stream.
The
If I
sad part
wanted
is
to
that you're not the first person who said that, so it's like that's a fair.
if I wanted to stream to Twitch or YouTube, it wouldn't be an issue. It's literally just because I want to do Discord, and I'm still trying to figure out a way to make that work. I got close yesterday. I could stream the the video, but the game audio wasn't going through.
Hmm,
So I got to figure that out.
I get you.
But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. I guess we should get into our topic because we got a long one for today. This is probably what if you didn't get it by the intro. This is one that's been hyped up for a while. It's been in planning since the show started.
Pretty
It's
much.
mostly my fault because I am terrible at watching things. Um, yeah, we're covering The Stand today, the 1994 miniseries, not the
I was gonna
2012
say
one.
I was gonna say if you didn't make time for this after watching all the Bratz movies, then we'd have a problem.
Yeah. See, the funny part with those is those are just I watch with Alex, and it's mostly
Yeah,
just riffing on them. This was more like I wanted to actually sit down and absorb what was going on. The Bratz movies, I can tell you, I wasn't paying attention most of the time.
that's fair. Unless it involved eating ass.
Ugh. We shat all over those movies. That's all I'm gonna say.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
But anywho, yeah, this one has been a long time coming because see like I'd like to say that I'm a long-term Stephen King fan, but I'm not realistically. Like I had seen a few of the movies growing up, but I didn't actually start like reading Stephen King until like maybe 6 years ago or so. No, maybe 7 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. It was actually after I had gotten into Star Trek. So yeah, it's fairly recently. But at this point, I have read everything he has published except for two books. I haven't read Dan's Macabre, and I haven't read the book that was published like 3 days ago.
Hmm.
Um, and I've also watched many, many adaptations, and this is one of the ones that always stood out to me.
Well, this one is interesting because it's not a movie. A lot of people forget that think this is a movie. It's not. It's a 4 episode miniseries.
Mhm.
But it has like the production value almost of a movie, which kind of why it kind of blurs the line a little bit.
At least for the 90s, it does.
I mean, watching it recently, it honestly held up a lot better than I remembered looking at it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, there are a couple of points that it's like, that didn't that didn't age well. Um, giant fire hand, but
I mean, CGI is just one of those things that just doesn't age well, but the practical effects were phenomenal the whole time going through it.
the face morphing was a little ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, how uncanny Flag is supposed to be, like it actually kind of works.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there.
Um, yeah, so this miniseries is obviously based off the novel, which, fun fact, I tried to do a book report on in high school and realized real fast in the time frame I was given that ain't wasn't happening. 'Cause
Hmm. You
it's
you
a lot.
probably would have you probably would have blown past whatever page limit you had too, because there's a
Yeah,
lot to say about this story.
I'm pretty sure I watched because I've watched this miniseries in the past, watched it a couple times, but like this is the first time I've watched it in probably a decade. Um, I'm not gonna lie, I probably just watched the miniseries and just use that as my basis for my book report, as they
I
say.
mean, that's fair. But you have read the book previously, correct?
In parts, I think I audiobooked it, to be honest.
Okay. The
Because
audiobook's not bad though.
I'm not the best reader when it comes to non-manga or comics. I won't lie.
Mhm.
Um,
There actually, fun fact though, there is a Marvel Comics version of The Stand.
I've seen the photos of it. I'm actually curious about tracking down like a collection of that at some point.
I don't know if they ever did like a collected volume. Um,
Cool.
I'll have to look into that because I've been wanting to collect like the Stephen King comics because they did one for The Stand and they did some for The Dark Tower, but I don't think they did the whole story.
There are apparently omnibuses, so you can
Oh,
find
okay.
those. I'll have to look into that at some point.
Hmm. Yeah, because I'd love to crack into those. That would be a fun time.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, to anyone who doesn't know, The Stand is a story about a pandemic, haha, that wipes out.
Uh,
Yeah,
watching this now, I was just like, it made me
you know
realize,
the
like,
you know the really funny thing too is the god awful remake came out in 2020.
yeah, it sure did. I think that's partially part of the reason I didn't want to watch it at the time because I was like, this is just, it's like The Last of Us 2 coming out
Mm.
during in the middle of that. I was like, this is just horrible timing.
But you know what's funny is they actually got a lot of like backlash over releasing it when they did, and it's just like, well, they're like, oh, you're just capitalizing on this thing. And it's like, no, we've actually been working on this for years. It just happened to be finished now. It's not our fault. There was a pandemic. we,
I don't know.
we didn't know we didn't know this was gonna be like autobiographical. Like,
Yeah. um, yeah, it's the classic the world is ending and society goes to shit and it's time to
mm.
watch it rebuild. And then there's like a religion subplot. It's great.
Oh yeah. Uh, but yeah, basically, there's a pandemic wipes out like 99.9% of the population, and it's just kind of like a story of it's kind of halfway a story about humanity, kind of like coming back together and rebuilding, but also half like this weird like biblical good versus evil kind of story,
Mm.
where you have like this old like essentially like a seer woman who is like the mouthpiece of God, and then you have what she refers to as Satan's imp in Randall Flagg.
Oh boy. So I want to say like right off the bat, like talking about Randall Flagg, because they were watching this again. There was multiple moments where like comes right back to you where I'm like, I remember this scene vividly from watching it back in the day. The first like one of the scenes with him. So uh, Jamie Sheridan, who played Randall Flagg in this film, he fucking like nails it. Like he is.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, pretty much every character nails it in this movie, but he
There's
chews the
there's a
scenery.
couple that I take umbrage with, but we'll get there when we get there. But
Mm.
yeah, Jamie Sheridan absolutely murders it. But
The
no pun intended.
scene where he's talking to Lloyd in the prison cell. That scene is still one of the creepiest scenes in the movie, and I still like vividly remember getting fucking nightmares from that as a child.
Hmm.
And he doesn't even
And then
transform in that scene. He's just a fucking scary fucker in that scene.
yeah, it's just like and all like the weird like under the radar biblical references he makes.
Yeah, like it's is it funny that like I think him in his human form is more terrifying than say like
Hmm.
the quote unquote supposed to be scary scene of him where Stu's in the cornfield and he just turns around and sees him and he just goes blah. And I'm just like, that was
Yeah,
the least scary scene in this movie.
for real. Um, you know what's funny too is he was not their first choice. They tried to get a couple of bigger act. They tried to get Christopher Walken, and
Oh,
when
that
that didn't work out, they also tried to get Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe might have been good. If they got Christopher Walken, I would not have been able to take it seriously.
I don't know, man. I think he might have done a good job with it.
Maybe at the time, I'm just when you think Walken now, I always think overacting and cowbells. So
That's fair.
he's
But
kind
I,
of
I think
become
I think
typecast into
ultimately
that.
ultimately Jamie Sheridan was a good choice. I mean, one of the reasons I think Christopher Walken would have been good. I mean, I'm also kind of comparing to the character in the Dark Tower movie, who he was played by Matthew McConaughey.
Mm,
Well, he's not called Randall Flagg, but they are technically the same character.
yeah,
Um, and I don't know, like a lot of like in that scene, like where Matthew McConaughey was playing him, like in a lot of ways, that kind of reminded me of like old school Christopher Walken. So I could have seen that working.
yeah. I always forget through the time frame because Walken has had kind of typecast himself as like that goofy overacting stuff like years later. So
I think that started with Joe Dirt.
yeah, well, I always think of it like the performances. I always think of like I think of him in like Batman Returns where he overacts the entire movie.
Forgot he
Um,
was in that movie.
a lot of people did, but he sure is there. Just
Um,
like stuff like that.
but I mean, just talking about like the casting was pretty incredible. They got a lot of big names in here, and even a few
Gary,
like little, even a few little cameos that you might not have noticed.
including Stephen King himself, because he does that in
Yep,
every one of his movies.
he's like Stan Lee. In fact, Stan Lee is the Stephen King of Marvel. Let's be real,
Pretty much.
because I mean, Stephen King's been
Well,
doing cameos in his movies forever, and then Stan Lee was just like, I'm gonna do that too.
to to be fair to Stephen King, though, Stephen King actually does stuff or did stuff.
Yeah, well, he still does. He's still
Yeah,
writing.
Stan Lee was a figurehead for most of the later part of his career.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, like Gary Sinise in like one of his earliest roles, and probably his like the role that got him noticed.
And I believe he was actually in at least a couple of other Stephen King adaptations. There's actually a lot of people in here that were in multiple adaptations.
Mm,
I mean, one of the ones that comes to mind, it was just a bit role in this one, but Kathy Bates
true.
was in here, and she famously played Annie Wilkes in Misery, and Dolores Claiborne in the movie of the same name. So,
A very young Rob Lowe as
yep,
Nick Andros, and my personal favorite, Bill Fagerback as Tom Cullen.
yeah, Patrick Starr.
Patrick Star. You hear the voice and you can't unhear it. You cannot unhear it, but he fucking nails the role very well.
Oh yeah, like I could not imagine anybody else playing Tom Cullen. He absolutely kills it.
Well, it's funny because a lot of people forget he had a prolific career before Patrick, but nowadays you hear his voice and you're like, it's Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is
Moon.
Patrick.
That spells Patrick Starr.
Is this the Krusty Krab? No, this is Patrick.
It's too great.
My name's not Rick.
Also, Molly Ringwald was probably one of the bigger names, at least at the time. And see, I'm probably going to be talking about, like, I just want to get this clear right at the beginning. I love this adaptation. I love this miniseries. I do have my problems with it, though, so I will be bringing up my issues, my grievances, and I don't want anybody to get it twisted. I love this series. I've watched it. I watched it twice this week, and it did not get old. But I don't think Molly Ringwald was a good choice for Franny.
Judging by her appearance in every other adaptation, she doesn't really look like the character at all.
She doesn't at all, and it's just we talk about overacting. Like I really think that Molly Ringwald is really kind of hamming it up in some of the scenes.
Yeah, to a degree. Like the one scene that kind of sticks out to me is the departure scene where the group goes off on their final journey.
Yeah, agreed. Then what else? Well, just naming a couple of the other couple of the, Ruby D as Mother Abigail.
Mother Abigail. Is it really bad that like I love her performance so much that when I saw like clips of when I saw clips of the remake, I was like, I wonder who they got to play her. And then the second I saw it was Whoopi Goldberg, I'm like, I'm not surprised in the slightest. I'm like, yeah, that's.
Well, supposedly they had originally tried to get Whoopi Goldberg as Mother Abigail in this version.
That's what I was wondering. I was like, I'm surprised they didn't get her to begin with. I was like, but
Yeah.
I love Ruby Dee's performance. So she, for how little dialogue she really has throughout the movie, like she like nails every scene she's in.
Well, I'm just saying, like I've seen bits and pieces of the newer version of The Stand, which is why I can't confirm it is awful. And maybe it's just the way they wrote her, but I didn't like Whoopi Goldberg's version of Mother Abigail. And I think part of that is, I think really, if they had given her the same script from this, I don't think I would have disliked it as much. But they made her like almost less like into God, and that kind of defeats the purpose.
Well, the thing with her character is that she's supposed to be kind of cryptic, but like also like have a message she's trying to put out, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, a couple of the others. One you might have missed if you weren't paying attention. Sam Raimi as Bobby Terry.
I did notice him there, and I was like, interesting, interesting choice.
And what was another one? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the monster shouter.
Yeah, I love that guy throughout the movie. The scene where like that you get that POV shot of him screaming at Larry. I was like, God damn, like back up, sir.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? While we're bringing that up, so we see him first in New York, and we had the whole scene with Larry and everything, and then like it a little bit later on I think it's when we first see Randall Flagg, and he's walking down the street, and he
Just
kills the deer,
in cold blood,
and then Kareem Abdul-Jabbar shows up as the monster shouter, and he kills him. But then later on in New York City, we see Larry like standing over his corpse. So it's just, and it even said like when it first switched the scene to Randall Flagg that he was in like fucking Arizona. So like, how is he in two places at once?
Either it's a plot hole or it's Randall Flagg fucking with Larry.
I don't know.
Which
I don't see why he would. I don't see why he would teleport the Master Shouter there just to kill him and then teleport him back. That'd be a little weird.
Good question. It's not important in the long
I
run.
guess so.
Um, who else was it? Oh yeah, one of my favorite characters in the film, Matt Frewer as the trash can man.
Yes, that was like a role that I wasn't expecting. Like I wasn't expecting him of all people because I don't know about you, but for me, he's the neighbor dad in How to I Shrunk the Kids. Like
Yeah.
that's what I know him as.
Is it bad that when I watch that movie now, I'm like, it's the trash can man. Who's he gonna blow up this time?
But it's funny too because I don't remember because he's been in a few Stephen King adaptations and ones that I've seen too, and I don't even know if I noticed him in them. But I don't because there was a scene I think in the third episode where Mother Abigail is using a remote control lawnmower, and I was like, wait a minute, is that the same remote control lawnmower from Honey I Shrunk the Kids?
It honestly might be.
Because I meant to look it up ahead of time, but I don't know if it was the same like studio that made both movies, then or both projects. That would be pretty funny if they just brought that over.
Hmm. We also got Adam Stork as Larry Underwood, the one hit wonder.
Yeah, it's kind of sad because like, see, I have mixed feelings with how Larry was handled. I think the casting was perfect.
Hmm.
Like I can't imagine anybody else fitting this role.
Like the scene I always think with him is that scene where he's sitting on the car playing Eve of Destruction of all things, where he meets up with his later wife character. I'm forgetting her name right now, but
Lucy Swan.
yep. I love that scene just because like I hear the song and I'm like, oh, it's Eve of Destruction, and I'm like, he's actually doing a really good rendition of it.
But I mean, my issues with Larry kind of stem from a different character.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I'll go on.
I was gonna say Nadine.
Yeah, yeah, she's kind of important in this movie.
She is, but the problem here with that, and I'm gonna go on a little tangent here, just fair warning. The problem with Nadine in this series is they combined her with a different character from the book,
Did they?
and that kind
Okay.
of fucks everything up. Because in the book, he doesn't meet actually Nadine was the one taking care of Joe, and that was how he met her. In like that scene. The woman he met up with in New York was like a 50s something widow. And he had like a little fling with her. Like pretty much everything like Nadine was doing in those New York scenes was this other woman. I'm blanking on her name. Rita Blakemore, I think.
Hmm.
And pretty much everything happens the same with Rita that happened with Nadine here. But then the tent scene, instead of how Nadine just kind of ups and leaves, Rita Blakemore ODs.
Oh, okay.
And that kind of like is a big driving force to Larry's character development. Like when he realizes that she's dead and like he kind of has a lot of self-reflection about like how shitty he had been. And then he kind of goes through like a little mental breakdown. And then it's like at the tail end of this mental breakdown that he meets Nadine and Joe. And it also didn't show like any of his relationship with Joe because like there's a whole bit where like Joe like really hates him and distrusts him, and then he teaches him how to play guitar, and that forms their bond. And they really did Larry a disservice in this series, even though I think the casting was perfect, and I still love every scene he's in. It could have been so much more.
Unfortunately, movie streamlining because the novel's huge as it is.
Yeah.
And it's only a four. How long is the remake series? Is it like longer or is it?
It has more episodes, but I think the episodes are more in line with like what they would be now, like between 45 minutes to an hour, depending
Okay.
on which one. So it might be slightly longer, all told, but not by much.
Okay, because I know even in a 6 hour miniseries, like that's a lot of shit's probably gonna have to get cut out because you're never gonna fit everything in one of these.
Yeah. Honestly, like, I mean, he originally wrote The Stand to be like his Lord of the Rings, which ultimately he ended up doing again with The Dark Tower.
Hmm.
But I think this would have been best served if, I mean, I don't know how they would split it up in movie format, but if they had done like a trilogy, like how Lord of the Rings was done, like that might have worked a little bit better. It would have given a little bit more time for that kind
Hmm.
of thing. So I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, we'll never know unless they decide to remake it again. And I don't want them to do that unless Mike Flanagan's behind it.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think they're ever going to top the 94 series, especially considering how like all remakes these days just tend to flop.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I haven't heard very good things about the latest Salem's Lot
Hmm.
remake. Well, actually, the second Salem's Lot adaptation, Rob Lowe played the lead.
Oh, cool.
Which,
Uh, and then the final two major protagonists we should have to bring up are uh, Rhea Walston as Glenn Bateman, and this Wikipedia article is a mess, and Peter Van Norden as Ralph Brentner.
mhm. Both of which I think were wonderfully cast. I absolutely love Boothby as Glenn. I
Yeah,
the remake did like this weird thing where they got like a younger dude who's like a college professor and like
that doesn't work. Like
yeah,
the whole point is that the whole point of that group is the fact that they're a group of like people from very different walks of life. Like,
yeah, for sure. Um, so yeah, I don't know what direction we want to take this in from here.
oh, we should probably talk about the villains a little too, because there's a few of them. Like we
This
brought
is
up
true.
Lloyd and Reed. Uh, Miguel Ferrer plays him. I liked him for the most part. Like I thought he was an effective villain who was kind of stuck in a weird place.
Yeah, there's like a weird argument to be made. Like I do think that he played the role well, but Lloyd Henry is supposed to be a younger character, and
Is
I
he?
funny enough in the remake he's played by Nat Wolff,
Huh.
famously of the Naked Brothers band and of Netflix Death Note fame.
Hmm. I don't know how I feel about that. Um,
I don't know, I kind of feel like as far as like if we're casting as far as like age and trying to be like more faithful, I guess I feel like he would be the better casting choice. Obviously, he was possibly not even born at the time, but he might have been a baby. I don't know, but
yeah.
either way,
Um,
like this version of Lloyd is fine. I think he does a great job.
we got Rick Ivlees as Ratman, who kind of is just there. Not
Yeah,
gonna
he's
lie,
just there to talk about honky voodoo and
smash a guitar.
yeah, stuff like that. Point the
Um,
gun.
who else do we got for villains? Do we
Uh,
count Harold as a villain?
I'd say so. I mean, he killed one of the best characters in the show and in
He
the book.
sure he sure did, and then he dies in like the most pathetic way ever.
It's even more
Um,
pathetic in the book because like in the series, it's like the vision of Randall Flagg appears before him, and then like that's why he swears off and hits the goes off the cliff. In the book, he just slips on oil. Like he hits an oil patch and just falls off the fucking cliff.
that that's honestly more fitting for that character because isn't it's kind of weird because like from what I've heard like this is one of the more questionable casting choices because apparently in the book he's like a lot more heavy set and more fitting of that kind of character.
Yeah, he's heavy set and he has real acne and not like painted on acne.
Yeah, I mean because the character that plays him here, Corin Nemec, he does a good job, but I think I don't I think they're being a little mean. I don't think he's that bad looking for the role he was playing.
Yeah, and they don't really go into like his whole backstory with all that. Because apparently he was like a super creep like in school. Like he had like because I don't think it was mentioned in the series, but Fran was like best friends with his older sister, and that's how they kind
Ah,
of know each other.
gotcha.
Um, and she would just talk like his older sister would talk mad shit about him, like tell everybody how he like jerks off into his shorts and shit. Like, yeah,
Good times.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, when he died, I think I was just kind of like, good riddance, because you did nothing. Like, you added
yeah.
nothing to this plot, sir.
Not in the miniseries, but he's like a really like complicated character in a lot of ways because there's a lot of moments in the book where he like really toes the line. He's really on the fence about whether or not he actually wants to do this shit. And
Mm,
Nadine kind of twists his arm into it once they get past the point of no return.
yes. Um, and then like she's kind of a one note villain, but I want to talk about her, just the fucking crazy bitch.
Julie Laurie.
Fucking is it that I was kind of like, she wasn't evil, I mean.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny is before all that shit went down with like the Pepto Bismol and shit. Like in the, I know how they handled it here. Well, first of all, I want to talk about that scene for a minute because when Nick and her are having that whole like exchange in the drugstore, and she like pulls him over and she's like, "Oh, do all deaf mutes have such big guns?" And he like the look on his face as he gives the nod is just fucking beautiful. It's just like
Oh,
fucking right they do.
he just like goes over over the top with his acting, but he does it so well.
Yeah. Um, but they actually bang in the book, like right on the drugstore.
Good for him, I
And
guess.
then
I
like
don't know.
almost immediately she starts like, making fun of Tom, which automatically makes her very hateable.
Yeah.
And then he smacks the shit out of her, which I mean, deserved.
That scene on the street is so goofy as fuck.
Oh
It's like,
yeah. I don't know what the fuck she was doing there, but
uh, yeah, fucking most memorable. Like, that's one of the characters that I always like, just like vividly remember though. Like, that scene is very iconic. I love the scene where she's shooting them from the window, and they're like,
yeah,
"Run!"
she's doing like the Apache scream, like
Yeah. Uh, a lot of scenes throughout this film that are very iconic.
oh for sure. Like it's one of those ones that I can always go back to. Like I never like it's never a slog to get through, even though it is pretty long for a mini series.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Uh, trying to think if there's anybody else notable to bring up. Um,
because I know a lot of the other characters tend to be kind of just like, they're either like they're important but not important enough to actually like last. I mean, there's like obviously like the patient zero at the start. Um,
yeah. Um,
and the spies they send
I think that's
into
pretty much covered. Yeah.
but
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm having a I don't know if it's on my end or your end, but I'm getting some lag. It
No,
is pretty windy here right now, so that could be contributing to it.
maybe.
Um,
Um, so I figure maybe not do a plot by plot rundown, but kind of go through like the key points from beginning to end.
yeah, I mean, we could at least talk about like specific scenes that stand out to us, whether it's for good reasons or bad reasons. Um,
Because I also wanted to start by bringing up the soundtrack to this movie is phenomenal. Like, there's some scenes that work very well.
yeah, there is definitely that was the point that I did want to bring up because the soundtrack does a really good job of giving this series a really confused idea of what genre it is.
Yeah,
Because there's a lot of points when you're listening to the soundtrack where you're like, this sounds like an 80s detective movie. And then you're like, no, this is actually a Western. And it's just like it bounces depending on what song is playing. And then like of course we had Don't Fear the Reaper at the beginning.
the opening scene, the scene of like when like gets bad, and like when uh what's his name, patient zero, escapes with his family, when it's just
Mhm.
cutting through the facility and just showing everybody's dead, and I'm just like, holy
Yep.
shit.
Yep. Yeah, it was pretty wild. Um, and shit, like whatever was like in that beaker, because like somebody like spilled a beaker or something. Like that shit was potent if you were close by when it fell, because they all died like instantly.
Yeah, yeah. The super flu. What was the name of it? It
Cap-
was like Captain
Captain Trips.
Captain Trips.
I don't know where that name comes from, but
It's like wacky. Like it is a weird virus because it's just like fucking like it's like such a devastating flu that basically just like melts your face. It's fucking. Ugh.
yeah, I think one of there was like numerous names for it. Captain Trips, I think, was the most like common in the book, but like some of them were like tube neck flu and shit like that, because it would like make the neck so swollen that it would look like an inner tube.
Yeah.
And like part of what made it so terrible is because it was like highly adaptable. And that's why a lot of times when you get like the scene we had, oh, that's one we forgot to mention. Fran's dad,
Yeah.
played by Dr. Kelso of Scrubs.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a sad death.
Yeah. But like like the scene where he's just like, "Oh, I think I'm feeling better." Like a lot better. And that was like, I think that was like to reference to how adaptable it is, because what it is like the body will start to fight it off and then it'll switch up. So like you'll start to feel better and then it'll get way, way worse and you'll die.
Yeah. Because when I think of like a brutal scene when is it like Kerrigan's his name, the patient zero or something?
Campion.
Campion. When he shows up at the gas station that triggers the main plot, like start in Ardena, Texas. Um, and he's just like he's like gone. Like you can tell he's on his last legs, and he makes the comment like, "Is my family okay? Can you check on my family?" And we never see his family because it's basically implied they're already dead. Like,
Yeah. Super dead.
yeah, he's like off his rocker at this point, like on his last legs.
Mhm. Um, so yeah, so the first like handful of characters, because we don't meet every character, like every important character in the first episode.
No, because the first
Um,
episode's mostly focused on the plague. Like the only major characters we really meet are like obviously Stu, who is like the pseudo protagonist of this movie. It's like him
yeah,
and Nick, I want to say, are like the two most prominent.
probably. See, that's the thing, is like this is very much an ensemble story. Like
Mm.
there is no like main character, so to speak. But there is a big argument you can make about Stu and Fran being the main characters, just because. Well, I mean, the story starts with Stu because Patient Zero ends up like right in front of him,
Yeah,
and
they're also like
he.
right, right on the fucking cover.
Yeah, well, you always want to show that love story right up top. Plus, I mean, Gary Sinise and Molly Ringwald. You had to market. um, but like, yeah, so you have that whole bit, like, we have Stu and Franny right from the beginning, and then it ends with Stu and Franny, with
Mm.
and looking at the baby. Um, but I mean, so the first episode we get obviously Stu, Franny, Larry, a little bit of Nick, um, I think Lloyd. We get a little bit of him.
Yeah, we get Lloyd how he ends up in jail, but we don't really get much beyond that. We also get a little bit of Mrs. Abigail, and then
Mhm.
we see Flag once, right?
Yeah, because he kills the monster shatter and that deer.
Yeah, and his acting
Trying to think
already
of,
like shows off exactly who he's going to be throughout the rest of the movie.
yeah. Trying to think if there was anybody else major who was introduced in that first episode. I don't think so, because we, like I said, we did show a lot of focus on just the plague taking over and everything, which in a lot of ways kind of makes the first episode my least favorite, just because it has the least to do with our characters and more with just the plague itself, and that's less interesting to me.
Yeah, because despite Stu being the most prominent character throughout this episode, you only see him when he's like confined in that hospital room. Which,
Mhm.
god damn it, like movies like this are like really like they're like, God, I hate the government.
Yeah, well, apparently Stephen King has his own feelings, because that's almost always in some way, shape, or form an element in his stories.
Yeah. It's just like you watch this and I'm just like, it's so weird watching this now after fucking the pandemic where I'm just sitting there going like, like you just kind of think
Yeah,
about shit.
no
Um,
shit.
but the scenes where he's in that hospital room, like, could you tell from the beginning that was going to be like a foregone conclusion?
What, they were just gonna kill him?
That everyone else was going to inevitably get it.
Oh, of course. Well, I mean, at that point, I mean, it was already widespread. Like, there was no way they were gonna make that place airtight. Like, I mean, it wasn't even like built to be like an airtight facility. It was just a building.
Yeah. Because there's like those scenes where they're like in the room interrogating him, and like there are so many points where I'm like, you wish Stu was like less of like a, because he's kind of like the true paragon in this film in a lot of ways, because he really isn't, he's a really good guy throughout the movie. Like he
Mhm.
never really does anything awful. Like only kills people when he has to. There are
Yeah.
like there were so many points where I was like, just rip the suit open. I'm like, just fuck them over. Like, why are you being
Yep.
such a nice guy?
That's why, like, one of my favorite scenes in that first episode is when he's doing the fake cough and they're
Yeah, and
like freaking
they
out.
freak the fuck out. You know what I was convinced to, like one of the things like that, like I think partially, I don't know if this is just a speculation, but like when they have the rat in there and they're like, look, this rat's been breathing your air.
Yeah, this is
I was
Geraldo.
wondering, I always wonder if like when they took that rat out because the rat had been surrounded by the air, I wonder if that helped infect everybody or something.
That's possible. See, that's the thing is like just because they aren't catching the flu doesn't mean they aren't carriers.
Oh yeah, because Stu, like, because the whole thing was like Stu is that he just is somewhat, he's just got immunity to it for whatever reason. Like, there's just some people that are,
Mhm.
which,
And I don't know if there's like a specific. I mean, there has to be some sort of gene that makes that happen, but at the
hmm,
same time, like you have like people who like their kids will die or their parents will die of the flu, but it's like they're fine. So like it has to be some sort of weird like mutation or something.
yeah, because they don't really specify that throughout the movie, like, because the only character that really gets highlighted as being immune is Stu. But then, like at the last in the last scene of the film, the doctor makes the point of being like, "Oh, well, two parents with immunity to the gene, you never know." And I'm just like, "Yeah, there's other people that are immune." And then it kind of hit me. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I guess everyone that's lived probably."
Yeah. Well, that's the thing though, is like I don't know if it's one of those things they just didn't think to bring up, but I mean, when you have all this like this whole God versus Satan subplot going on after all like the plague stuff, like
Hmm.
why would God care if people couldn't continue to have children? Like, what would it matter what happened to the planet Earth? Like, what would it matter if Randall Flagg controlled the last people left because like if they weren't able to have immune children, they would all just die anyway, and it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, yeah, that is a weird. It is a really weird thing when you think about it. Like the whole like the whole like the whole like virus plot kind of just falls off the wayside after the first episode.
Yeah, well,
And it,
until like babies become, you know, a subject of conversation.
yeah, and even then, it's still like kind of just a thing that gets brought up, but it's like not really important to the plot anymore because it really becomes the good versus evil thing after that.
Also, it's pretty rude that all the dogs and horses also had to die.
Except for Kojak,
Yeah, which
our boy.
in the they don't do it in the series, but in the book he does get a lady dog, so he gets to have little Kojaks.
That was probably just fat trimming, honestly,
Well,
for the
yeah, I
movie.
mean, of course. I mean, there's a lot of things that they trimmed out. That's one of the things where like I kind of wish that this had been like a 2-season show or something, and they really could have like gone into a lot of the specifics.
Mm.
There's a lot of aspects to all. Like, I mean, the stuff with Larry and Nadine were like the biggest that I feel like um hurt. No, yeah, yeah, I'd say that definitely hurts the overall story. But with everybody
Yeah,
else, like, yeah, there's a lot more stuff you could say about them. Like, yeah, you could say that Stu served in Vietnam. You could say that um Nick's whole his whole life story about being in, you know, the foster system and learning how to read through this other deaf mute, and like there's all sorts of things you could say about all these different people, but like all that would just be extra for them. Like the Larry Nadine stuff is very integral to them as characters.
Yeah, and the way the movie kind of handles it, it's kind of glossed over.
Mhm. Exactly. And that's why, like, even though I think that the actor plays Larry so well,
He
like to the
does.
point where I can't imagine anyone else doing it, like the
Like the scene where
the
he's yell
limitations did a disservice to him.
like this one of the scenes that I think is iconic in this film is the scene of them about to go in the tunnel and then she like leaves because she doesn't want to go in the tunnel and him just like yelling at her as she leaves. Like that scene is like
Mm.
iconic. Like I remember that dialogue like vividly.
Yeah, then just even the whole scene of him going through the tunnel, like that's one of the big scenes everyone remembers from the book and from the miniseries.
Yeah.
And it's handled very well because you really like you can really get the sense of his like panic as he's going through it, because it is like, I mean, there's no lights in there, it's just filled to the brim with corpses.
Hmm. And then the other major character, like we see a lot of Fran's like family stuff. We meet Harold, but it's mostly kind of it happens and moves on from that. The other character that really gets the main focus in the first episode is we get Nick, where he gets jumped on the street and
Mhm.
then taken into the police custody, and then he befriends the officer and doctor there
Yeah, essentially becomes the deputy.
because we
Um,
find out off screen the other side that the police deputy died.
yeah, which that was another thing that was a little bit of a bummer, because I mean he didn't stick around for very long in the book, but he was around a little bit longer and they got to know each other better. So
Hmm.
actually to the point where Nick was taking care of his wife as she was dying and then buried her. So
Yeah,
um
get a bit of an understanding of Nick as a character here, though, like because obviously he can't speak and he can't hear, but he is very perceptive with because they always say like when you lose your senses, the ones you have left kind of like enhance to compensate. He's very perceptive with his eyes and how he
mhm.
views things because he can read lips better than. Like, I'll never understand how lip reading works. So it's just a thing I've never gotten, but it's like if that's like a real thing, it's like wow.
Yeah. Um yeah, that's another really standout performance in this series is Rob Lowe as Nick Andrews. Like he, like you don't think about it too much, but like performing somebody who's a deaf mute in a
Hmm.
believable way is very difficult, and he really sells it.
Yeah, well, it's like
Um,
it's all in the facial expressions and like specifically like how he what he does with his eyes. Like you really see a lot of the emotions there. Like when he's like he's helping the inmates out, even the one that's an absolute piece of shit.
mhm. And then even like, you know, when all that shit was going on with Julie Lowry, and she was shooting at them, and they go, Tom was freaking out, but like he was completely unaware until he actually saw like one of the shots land next to him. He's like, "Oh fuck, I gotta get out of here."
Mm.
But and like the way he would have to mime certain things to Tom for him to understand them. Like,
Oh yeah, because that's a big moment when he first meets Tom. Tom doesn't know his name because he can't read because Tom is slightly mentally handicapped and
yeah, they dropped the hard R on this.
yeah, it
In
was 94. It was
well,
95. I mean,
no, hard R is a different thing.
yeah, that's a very different thing. Um,
God damn it. No,
they they
yeah,
they use the term that it was back then, essentially.
yeah, uh,
Um,
quite a bit. And even going to like the deaf mute thing, like they refer to him as deaf and dumb most of the time.
yeah, which is that was just how it was. Like the Who album Tommy like specifically drops that throughout the songs, like because that's just how what the term was then. We've
Mhm.
since moved on from that, obviously, but like when I think like iconic scene with, 'cause I think Nick and Tom might be the most iconic friendship in in the series, especially which is sad because in the movie it's kind of short lived because Nick dies in the middle of the third episode. But
I mean, honestly, it might be one of the most iconic friendships in all of Stephen King's works.
hmm, Because like it starts out where he runs into him in the town, which this was such a sad scene in hindsight. Just Tom is so lonely that he's setting up mannequins throughout the street just to make the place look more lively.
Yeah.
Like
Um,
that is such a sad kind of scene when you realize it.
yeah, just because of like his mental capacity, like like he knows his mom died because he saw it, but he thinks everybody else left to go to Kansas City.
Yeah, yeah. And when he runs into Nick, like Nick's trying to like get through to him, but he's like, I can't read, mister. So then Nick has to kind of think of other ways to communicate with him. And
Mhm.
there is one point where Nick's kind of leave him there, and Tom doesn't really perceive it that way, and he mentions seeing Mother Abigail, and that immediately triggers with Nick that he's like, oh wait a minute, this guy actually also knows what I'm talking about, and they kind of just form that friendship from there.
Yeah. There was also another scene in the book where Tom actually saves his life because there was a tornado that just kind of happened, and Nick was completely unaware of it, and it was Tom that like was like, "Shit, we got to get out of here," and like he pulled them. They went and like hid in like the basement of like a farmhouse or something.
Mm.
But that was like a big part of the reason why when the time came to start deciding on who to send to Vegas, like that was one of the big reasons why Nick chose Tom,
Mm.
which ended up being the right choice, even though the whole spying part of it ended up being completely pointless. I mean, the spies did have their role, and it was a big part of why things broke down in Vegas the way they did.
I do love that Tom's big moment of spying is he discovers the missile hangar, and then that doesn't even end up being a plot point because Trash Can Man just blows it up anyways
Yep.
because
Yep.
he's so unhinged by that point.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be asked about old lady Semple's pension check anymore,
Yeah. Yep. Uh,
so he just blew everybody up.
sure did. But it was all for him.
Yep. The big fire. Um. So I think another like big scene. Building off of the Tom and Nick meeting. You ever wonder like because obviously like everybody's still heading to go see Mother Abigail or to Vegas, depending on who you are. Uh, and we know that Nick's group makes it there first.
Mm.
So it makes you wonder, like, I wonder how many people were just passing through Tom's hometown and just saw all that shit still there. It was just like, what the fuck happened
Well,
here?
this is actually one of the most interesting post-apocalyptic settings to me because it's a post-apocalyptic setting where society doesn't completely crumble because like all the technology and like power and stuff is still around. Like I think
Mhm.
Glenn actually brings that up at one point. He's like technology's still here. People just have to find it.
Yeah, find it and figure out how to get it going again.
Yeah. Because they also have like that when they do and eventually get the power going again. There's the whole point about we need the shut offers, the people that got to go around and turn all the stuff that was left on off.
Yeah, and they have to have a whole team of people dedicated specifically to disposing of all the corpses from the flu,
Yeah,
which is
it's just
fucking dark.
it's a weird post-apocalyptic setting because it's not like in general most like it's not like most versions of this where like the world just fucking collapses like technology. They revert basically back to the Stone Age and the world basically gets reclaimed by nature. This is still pretty. I know this like the plague happens pretty quick, so it's not like there's was time for stuff like that. But it's interesting seeing like the world still being kind of where it was, just with less people.
I mean, when you think of like when you look at like from the very beginning, like the beaker is dropped and the plague is released, to them standing in the hospital looking at Franny's baby, that's 6 months. It's 6 months total.
Yeah, it's a very short period, which is it's actually fascinating in a lot of ways.
Hmm. Um,
Oh, we should probably
I
go
also,
back and talk about Stu's breakout because that is a very
yeah,
chilling scene in a lot of ways.
yeah, because at one point, by the point where the plague is already like so far along, and there's only like one other main guy still in the disease center.
That
He goes
scene
in.
is legit kind of like terrifying. Like, cause like you're so used to them showing up in the stupid green suits that like when you're just sitting there watching, then he just walks in and you're like, oh fuck. Like, what the fuck
Yeah.
happened here?
Elvis just like, what you got behind your back there?
And he does the least convincing switch hands I've ever seen, by the way.
Hmm.
Um
And he left the door wide open too.
that jump scare though, when like after like Stu knocks him out and takes his gun, like when he's like
Mhm.
looking around for a way out and then he just comes back into the room, I was like, oh shit.
That's the same. Like I know Stu's supposed to be like the paragon here, but like I would have popped him one just in case
I
with
know,
a gun.
well, because it was supposed to showcase that Stu is that like the true good of the series, because he legit won't doesn't kill him until he flat out has to,
Mm-hmm.
which I found very interesting. Also the scenes of him like escaping from the hospital, like we get that one guy down in the stairwell that's still alive, which was
Yeah,
that
that
was
he like
also
Spartan kicked down the stairs.
yeah, I was like, oh god. The dude in the elevator, that whole scene is this is an like it's weird because this movie is technically horror, but it's like not at the same time. But there are some horrific scenes in this movie.
I don't even know. I don't even think I would classify it as horror. I don't know
It,
what I would classify it as, but I don't. It wouldn't be horror.
it's got some light horror elements to it,
Well, I mean,
particularly
it's Stephen King, so there's always going to be some horror elements.
yeah, because like that scene, if you isolated just the movie to that would straight up be a horror.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
yeah,
But I love the
uh,
scene where Stu meets Glenn, where Glenn's first. But we haven't brought it up yet, but there's like a big like overhanging thing where like throughout the whole miniseries, people will just be singing the like one hit that Larry had
yep,
was a baby can you dig your
including
man.
including Randall at one point, which is hilarious.
Yep. Um, which is was actually really fucked up in context in that scene.
Yeah,
Um,
we'll
but
get there.
yeah. But yeah, when Stu and Glenn meet and like Glenn's just sitting there doing his terrible painting and singing "Baby, can you sing? Baby, can you dig your man?" And Stu just kind of comes up on him and they start their chatting and stuff. Like I don't know, it's just such a wholesome scene to me, especially when like you involve Kojak in there too. Like
Glenn is literally Mr. Exposition throughout this movie because like anytime they need like someone to just talk and like explain like stuff, it's always Glenn and he does such a good job at it.
yeah, um, he's one of those guys who's just kind of essential to getting shit back together.
Yeah. No, I really like every scene he's in. Like I love the scene where eventually Franny and Harold go off in their biker gang with Harold's stupid as fuck jacket. Uh,
Yeah, I hated that. It was
he,
so bad.
he- nothing against the actor, but my god, some of
All
those
the
scenes.
all the studs in that leather jacket. It was just he had like was he wearing like assless chaps or some shit? Like he was
Yeah,
wearing shit underneath it, so it wasn't just his ass, but like he was wearing assless chaps. like
this is literally when the nerd tries to be cool, and it is exactly like what you'd expect.
it's like he's
Um,
trying so hard to reinvent himself, but he still can't just get over the like shitty reputation he had back home, even though there's
yeah,
only one person still alive who knew that version of him. So like
yeah, and even then, in this movie, that's not even really known. It's just kind of a
mhm.
thing that you'd only know from the books. I do love the scene though, where like before they start heading to Kansas, they're just chilling at Glenn's house, and Stu just gets the beer out of the lake, and he's just like, "Hey, I got cold beer."
Yep. Yeah. It was Glenn's idea, which I mean I never would have thought of that. That's actually a fantastic idea.
Hmm. That's also the first hint that Fran is pregnant because she won't take the beer.
Which that's another thing I had an issue with because with they made such a big thing. Like they didn't reveal that Franny was pregnant until like what episode 3, like the beginning of episode 3.
Yes, the scene where her and Stu get together really fast, like in like
Which
just like
yeah, which is like it's important obviously because having kids is kind of an important thing, but like it's not like a story breaking kind of thing like if they didn't include it.
hmm.
But with Nadine, they pretty much like spelled out her role from the very beginning. Like almost immediately,
Yeah.
like she's introduced, they start showing like her having dreams of Flag and like how they're gonna get married and they're gonna have kids and all this other shit. Like that was held off a lot longer in the book. Like literally the first scene we see of Franny, we find out she's pregnant in the book. But with Nadine, we don't find out her tie to Flag until way down the line,
Yeah.
which I feel like is way more important of a reveal and should have been held off. Which is
I love.
another reason why combining those characters is a bad move.
I do kind of love the scene too with when Harold first shows up. He's like, I don't trust this guy, and it's like Stu's like, don't worry, I'm not going to steal your girl. And then I'm just watching. I'm like, he's going to steal your girl.
Yep. It's even more
Like,
clear in the book too, because like really right after he has that talk with him about like I'm not gonna steal your girl, and then like they're all hanging out together, and he's just like just thinks to himself like, oh, I kind of like her. He's like, oh fuck.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of like it's like the second I see that scene of like I'm like, well, first off, they're not together, so it's like free game there. But
Yeah, for sure.
but yeah, that
Also, it was
I
weird because when she told him that she was pregnant in the miniseries, that was kind of like he told her that told him that she was pregnant, and then they just started making out. Like apparently that was a big turn on for him. Like, I don't know why.
I don't know that scene in the woods is so goofy because I'm sure
Yeah.
like if in the book it's more developed, maybe.
I mean, their relationship was more developed, and it
Okay.
just kind of came to a head there. But Harold watches them do it in the woods the whole time. He's just sitting there watching.
I mean, for his character, that tracks. I mean,
Yeah,
he's got cuck energy. That's all I'm gonna say.
yeah. He's a major incel, that's for sure.
Yeah, years before those terms even existed, which is really funny.
Yep. Um,
Um,
Also, by this point, they had the judge with them, Judge
I like the
Ferris.
judge. I like the judge too.
I
The scene
love the
where
character, but oh wait, go on.
I was just gonna say the scene where he dies is really sad.
Yeah. Um, Killed by Sam Raimi. That son of a bitch. Um,
I know.
but it was actually weird too because I didn't pick up on it until this last watch, but he actually isn't supposed to be with Stu's group. He's supposed to be with Larry's group, and that is why Larry specifically suggests Judge Ferris for the spy role. And I realized like it doesn't really make sense for Larry to be the one because he wouldn't really know him at all. Like, why would he bring up the judge randomly if you don't know him?
Yeah, they
But like in
definitely
in the book, they traveled together, so he had a lot of time to get to know him on a personal level.
because Stephen King was heavily involved with this series, right?
I believe he wrote the script. Yes.
Okay, he probably just moved things around for it to make sense.
Yeah. Also, I just want to bring up. I know we're kind of jumping around a little bit, but there's the scene when they're having the big meeting right after they form the council or whatever.
Hmm.
There's a scene where, like, at the very beginning of that meeting, Stu's like, "All right, let's get this going, and then we can all get out and have a beer." And then it flashes to Stephen King, and he's like, "Fuck yeah!" I found that really funny because this
Let's
is
see
like
it.
right after he got sober.
Yeah,
Because he
I
was
just
because
remember.
Stephen King was a major alcoholic
Oh
and
yeah, and
cokehead.
I just remember like because the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, when did Stephen King show up? And then I see him there. I'm like, okay, there he is.
Yeah,
Uh,
and his acting is always silly as fuck.
I still remember the one film. I forget which one it is, where he's the bus driver.
I don't remember.
Forget which one it is. It's such a goofy cameo where he's like, see ya.
Hmm. Yeah, I love the King cameos. They're always great.
But yeah. So moving back now to we should probably talk about the scene with Lloyd in the jail cell after he got arrested for the worst the worst robbery I've ever seen.
Yep. After they pokerized a bunch of people.
Yeah. There's some fun slaying in this movie. That's all I'll say.
Oh yeah, it was the '90s.
I do love the scene though, where him and his henchman, or well, technically he's the henchman, are driving there, and he's like down in the beer, and he's like, "Dead soldier!" He just chucks it out the
Yeah.
car as they're swerving around the road. I'm like, "Yeah, I think you guys are good."
Yeah, no
Um,
shit. So yeah, he got arrested for like actually it was for a series of crimes that they don't mention. Um,
yeah,
but and then it kind of just flashes to him like after the plague has already hit. Like we don't see any of him in the jail cell until after everybody's already dead.
yeah.
And
He's eating a rat just in case.
yeah, well, I don't think they brought it up, but he was also munching on his celly.
It gets brought up later. Like Flag makes a comment about like his cell's ankles or something weird. Um, but they mostly highlight the rat he has hidden under his
Mhm.
mattress
Yep,
just in case.
Brer rat.
I just love his whole every time he brings up he's like just in case, just in case.
Yep,
Um, yeah, that scene through the jail cell though when Flag shows up, that is such a creepy scene because it's like his most normal. Like he's not even like playing up the fact that he's evil as hell, but it's just like the way he acts there is so creepy.
he's just so coy about it. Like he's just like, yeah,
Oh,
it's
that's
like I know
smart.
you know, but I'm not
He's
gonna call attention to it.
he's got the best creepy smile. Like it just like the guy is unsettling in his performance, and I kind of like it for that reason.
Yeah, for sure. Um, but yeah, that whole bit where he like pretty much like convinces him like you're gonna work for me and I'll let you out of here.
Hmm.
And it does kind of like turn Lloyd's life around. Like obviously he's not doing good, but like he becomes a much more functional person,
Well,
much more much more capable person of standing on his own and doing what he needs to do.
that's a huge because it's implied that he was basically just pushed around his entire life, and then when it's that's implied later on that he knows that Flag's a bad person, but it's like he literally is the only person that ever like had faith in him, so he kind of has to stand by him no matter what.
Yeah, he says like it's like the only person who's ever chosen me, you know.
Yeah,
Like
and it's
everyone
it's
else he
inter-
just kind of fell in with.
it's interesting too because like there's so many scenes for like because Flag like straight up will just murder like his henchmen if they fuck up. Like Lloyd's like the one that like when something bad happens, he'll get pissed for like 3 minutes and then just be like, okay, so anyways, um,
Yeah. He like ate Sam Raimi's face.
yeah, he did that scene. Was fucking insane. Fucking, but I think of like the scene like in the where he's like yelling at him over the phone, and then he immediately just like shifts. He's like, okay, the other henchman, by the way, guess who it is, and then it cuts to reasons we'll get to later.
Hmm.
Um,
Um,
so yeah, we
trying to
had the
think of where
scene.
we should go from here.
Well, we should probably talk about Tom and Nick meeting because we already talked about the Pepto Bismol scene. Um, we should probably talk about when they meet Ralph
Yes.
because that
Which is
that
the
is a very
first time Tom learns Nick's name.
I love the way that Nick gets through to Tom there though because the whole time Tom's like, well, I love first Tom's like, is it crazy bitch? And Nick's like, no, she's back there.
It's
Um,
like, no, she's back the way we came.
and Tom's like, oh okay. He's like, but what if they're like crazy bitch? Uh, but Nick's like, but they could be better. They could be
Yeah,
good.
they could be like us.
And then you find
You
out
know, just
it's Ralph, and he's like the nicest guy imaginable.
yeah, right. Farmer John.
Pretty much, yeah. That is such a fun
um,
scene though, where he's like, "Oh, you guys can come along, hop in. We're going to Kansas."
it was Kansas. Yeah, it was Kansas.
Yeah,
Couldn't remember. And it was a weird thing too. Is in the book at one point, Flag mentions also being from Kansas, which was retconned later, uh, because here's a little peek behind the Stephen King universe. He's also a major character in the Dark Tower,
yeah.
and it's heavily implied in the Dark Tower that he's from the world of the Dark Tower. So I don't know if this is just like a twinner kind of thing,
Hmm.
like where like like maybe he's able to like flip in the way that Jack Sawyer can in the Talisman and kind of like go to like his alternate universe versions of himself. It's complicated. It's hard for me to really explain what I mean without really going into like the multiverse of Stephen King, because there
True.
is a multiverse. It's kind of insane how they all connect.
For this movie isolated in itself, I always just kind of assumed that he just changes he changes like things he's like facts he says based on the situation a lot of the times, like
Mhm.
just to make it convenient.
Yeah.
Because like I still think one of the creepiest scenes in the movie is the scene where they show a Mother Abigail playing guitar, and then he's just in the bushes watching, and he's like, "Hello, Mother." He's like,
Yeah.
my blood is in your palms," and then she starts playing the guitar, and it's just bleeding all everywhere. I'm like, that scene is fucking disturbing.
Yep. There's rats in the corn.
Yeah, it's always the corn.
That's one thing they didn't get into in this is Mother Abigail's corn fetish, because it's a thing. It is absolutely a thing that they mentioned in the books, that when she was like doing one of her husbands, she was just thinking about corn. It's fucking bizarre.
Sure, why not? Uh,
um, but I mean that's one of the draws for Stephen King's works, though, is it's always so like bizarre and out there, but like also relatable in a lot of ways. Not the corn thing, but that's just a weird Stephen King thing. But
I mean, you never
just in
know.
general, I'm talking in general. Like, I mean, I don't know if corn fetish is like a common thing or not, but it's not something I have, so I can say that for certain.
Just thinking of the goddamn Friends episode where Monica walks in on Chandler watching porn, but he changes it to fucking the fucking Shark Week, and she thinks he has a shark fetish. Uh,
Oh, jeez.
uh,
So yeah, then
oh,
I mean, we already kind of touched on Stu and Fran getting together, so I guess we jump to them,
the
next
big
group getting
convergence.
to Mother Abigail.
Yeah, because this is kind of where like all the groups kind of converge because like we get Nick and Tom and Ralph show up with along with a few other people.
Yeah, Susan Stern, some little girl, a couple other people.
Yep, all these people that any character that hadn't had the major backstory, I'm like, these people are gonna die at some point, aren't they?
Hmm.
Which a bunch
Um,
of them do.
well, it's actually like, I don't know if you remember from the book, but Susan Stern and what the hell's her name? Uh, Dana Jurgens or whatever the fuck her name is,
Oh,
the
her,
one who
yeah.
ended up doing the spying thing. Their introduction in the book is fucked.
Well, yeah, because isn't it like they're from they were a group of women that were basically being held captive as you can
Exactly
assume.
what you could imagine.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
for
exactly what you think.
for the dystopian world, it always happens.
Yeah. And that's how they're introduced in the book, and they just kind of don't even. It's not even a thing here.
I don't know how they would. I mean, there's a scene later in the movie that's pretty bad too that we'll get to, but it's also very
I don't
important.
even know how they got away with that on the TV in the 90s.
Yeah, because there's no way they could have shown this scene, the introduction to those characters in this, because maybe he has an Amazon special these days,
I
but
don't know. Maybe HBO. I don't know. But
yeah,
yeah. Uh, so they have their like little dinner before they leave Mother Abigail's house, and I love this conversation with just like this back and forth with Ralph and with Mother Abigail, Ralph and Nick, where they're talking about like what they have to do, and they're like, "Oh, I was told we got to do this and that." And they're like, "Told by who?" It's like, God, duh. Like, who else? And
I love that scene too because you get the really wholesome scene of Tom playing. I think he's playing like catch with the little girl in the back.
hmm. And then like there's this whole bit where like Mother Abigail's going on about like all these things that God told her to do, and they talk about Randall Flagg a little bit, and then when Nick writes down the thing, like he gives it to Ralph, and like Ralph looks super uncomfortable, like he doesn't want to say it. And he's just like, well, he says that he doesn't believe in God. And Mother Abigail just starts laughing her ass off. And she's like, that doesn't matter, Nick, because he believes in you.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's interesting the way it's all portrayed.
And that's good. I don't know, like not to get like too weird into it or whatever, but like, it's kind of like the attitude I've always had about religion. It's just like if you're a good person, you live a good life. God's gonna recognize that. If there is a God, He's gonna recognize that, and you're gonna get whatever you have coming.
Yeah, that's kind of how I've always seen it. I'm not ultra religious, but I'm also not atheist. I'm just kind of a if it
Agnostic.
exists, it exists. I'm not even that. I don't even like to put a term to it. I'm just kind of if it exists, it exists. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
There's an energy to the universe, whether you want to call it God, whether you want to call it fate, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
I don't feel
There's
like I need to
something
put a
there.
label on it. I don't feel like I need to put a label on it. That's just kind of how I've always been.
There's some sort of floating spaghetti monster out there.
Sure, why not? Um, but yeah. So then after that, then we eventually get one of my favorite scenes where they finally kind of establish Boulder, and like you just get this
Mm.
armada of cars showing up.
Yep. Because they were just waiting for them to show up.
But the entire group gets together there, and that's kind of where they establish the town. Essentially,
Mhm.
it's implied that Larry and what's her name,
Lucy.
Lucy, get together. Was Lucy a character in the book?
Yes.
Okay,
But she wasn't introduced until a little bit later.
gotcha. Okay,
Um,
because it's implied that they got together at some point, and the little kid just kind of is integrated there. It's not super developed here.
mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, they really don't touch Joe's development at all, and like literally, like it's almost uncanny because Larry meets them. Excuse me. He meets them, and then in the next scene that we see them in together, they're married. Like there's
yeah,
literally
that just
no development at all.
yeah, because like that scene when because Nadine returns, by the way, for and
Traveling with
she
Stephen King himself.
yes, that was interesting. But the scene where she goes to Larry's house to try and get with him one last time, and he's like, "My wife is here," and I'm just like, "Oh, they got married. Okay,
Mhm.
sure."
You look through my wife. Somebody just throws her to the ground too. She's like, "Nah,
Also,
go away."
she aged in like a year because like she all of a sudden has gray hair now.
Well, that's part of the whole thing with like her connection to Flag is that her
Yeah.
hair is like progressively getting whiter.
Mm.
Because they, they
And
they they make a point of mentioning in the book that she's prematurely going white.
yeah, because they don't really bring it up in the movie super well, other than like one offhand line with Harold later.
Hmm. Um. So yeah, and I love that like the scene where like Mother Abigail is just greeting people on her porch. And then when Nadine shows up, she's just like, "Who's this woman who comes?"
Yeah.
She's just-
Shows
she
up.
gets super angry for like out of nowhere. And we haven't really talked about it much, but Nadine is just like completely unhinged throughout this whole series.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Like,
mean, if you're living with the dreams, the nightmares that she does, it doesn't surprise me.
yeah. Well, I mean, like she kept it together a lot. Let's see, like how I mentioned, like she was the one taking care of Joe. Like part of the whole thing, like why I think she was done a serious disservice. Like the actor did fine with what she was given, but like she was given a real disservice because when she was introduced, she was taking care of Joe. It was established that she was a school teacher, um, and that like she even mentions at one point in the book, like the world as it is after this whole play business, the worst thing you could do is take life. And
Yeah.
then like she goes through all this shit. Randall Flagg's pulling the strings, and ultimately she ends up uh taking part in you know uh, a bombing essentially.
Yeah.
And like it just shows like her descent in a way that the miniseries doesn't. Like there's so much more character there that you just get unhinged Nadine throughout this miniseries, and in the book she's so much more of a character.
Mm. Yeah, because we get that scene where like she begins to fall into her descent and she starts seducing Harold, which
Everything but
may,
that one little thing.
yeah, major incel energy from that guy. That's all I will say.
By the way, Harold is supposed to be 16. She's supposed to be in her mid to late 30s.
Uh huh.
Yeah,
I don't even want
just
to
gonna
touch
throw
that
that
one.
out there.
Uh, yeah,
He
that's
does.
why I'm. That's why I really.
Hey.
That's why I'm really glad the movie doesn't bring that up ever, so I don't have to think about it. Um,
Yep.
but
Well, I mean, it kind of does at one point where Fran's just like, "Oh, maybe you'll find a date your own age."
yeah, that was so early in the thing, I forgot about it by the time this happened. Thankfully, um,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Um, he's just making bombs in his basement because he has that weird dream in his
Yeah,
stupid
he's
studded
just
jacket.
the only time he's referred to as Hawk is in that dream, which is another like big thing because like that was a like the reputation he gained in Boulder was a big factor in him being on the fence about whether or not he actually wanted to go through with the plan.
Mm,
Because like there was a point where he was kind of realizing like, hey, my old life doesn't exist anymore, and I actually am kind of well liked here. Like maybe I shouldn't do this.
yeah, because like there's the scene during the when they're announcing all the people at the meeting, and like he's the one that like is basically like, why do we even need to vote? Let's just go with what Mother Abigail said. Um,
Mhm.
like there's that whole scene, and then he just
Even Glenn's
immediately,
like, why didn't we think of that?
yeah, and then we immediately just get this one scene with where he gets seduced, and then immediately he just falls into fucking Matt. He just goes full incel on us.
Yep. Um, there's another bit there that I wanted to talk about, but no, I can't remember what it was.
Um,
Oh well, yeah, him having his disco jam,
such a goofy scene.
which is really funny too, because I'm pretty sure it was the isn't that Disco Inferno?
Yeah,
It's the same song that you referenced when we did the Rurouni Kenshin episode.
yeah, true. Uh, yeah, that scene was very upsetting though when they blow up the meeting house. Um,
Yeah, it always makes me mad because it makes Tom sad that Nick is gone. And it makes me sad that Nick is gone too because I love Nick as a character.
well, it's sad too because when they send Tom off to do his spying mission, like he says goodbye to Nick, but like and they have like the nice like bro hug, but it's like at the time you don't realize that's their last time they see each other in person. Um,
Mhm.
it's just kind of a sad
He,
scene.
he does. Tom will have some prophetic dreams of him later.
Yes. Also, the other scene too that's really sad is Ralph gives Tom his trademark straw hat, and he tells him he take care of it so he can give it back to him when he sees him again.
Mhm.
And when you hear that scene, you're like, they're never going to see each other again.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah, but after the bombing of the house happens, they basically are told by Mother Abigail before she passes away that the four of them need to go off on a journey by foot and basically bring God to hell. I guess is the
Yep.
best way to explain it. It's when they get to have their final stand,
Yeah, they
where
just need
she's
to stand. That's
where they
all.
say where they say the title multiple times throughout the episode.
Yep.
I
Gotta
also
make
love
a stand.
I also love that the final part is literally called Stephen King's The Stand, Part Four, The Stand.
Yep. Well, I mean, that's the big thing. And then, like, what's funny too is I don't know if it started in the third episode or the fourth episode, but like the iconic like music track
Hmm.
for the stand, like it's not even like played once until like they start their journey. I'm pretty sure, but like that's the song that I like associate with this series.
I just that whole sequence, like I just remember vividly, like from all the times because I think I'd seen the ending of the movie more times than I'd seen the rest of it because it was always
Mhm.
on like HBO back in the day or whatever. But
Yeah.
my dad would watch it all the time. But I always remember like that. We also get the so we had the scene where the spies were all getting taken out one by one, like the judge gets murdered.
Mhm.
Um and then what's her name? Is it Dana or whatever?
Yeah. Dana Jerkins.
She gets she's the spy sleeping with Lloyd as a to get close, and then she gets outed, and then the scene where gets confronted by Flag, that is such a brutal scene.
Yeah, that's another one of those scenes that's like really tense. Like another one of those scenes that really shows off Jamie Sheridan. That's his name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really shows off his acting chops.
Well, that was we got the face change a couple times there. I did like the hidden shiv becomes a banana. That's just funny. Um,
Classic, classic. I don't know why like exchanging knives for bananas is so funny, but it just is.
well, just anytime just the way he laughs, he's like, "Oh, you thought that would work, huh?" And then it just reveals banana. It's just like
You got banana.
uh, the way she like ends it though. Like it was like because I was wondering how she was gonna. I knew she wasn't getting out alive, but I was actually shocked. Like because they have to like say because isn't it like a whole thing like he wants them to be the heads to be preserved so he can like figure out who the other spies are or something.
Well, no, they didn't really like call attention to it. He wanted the heads to be untouched because ultimately his goal was to collect the heads of the spies and throw them into the free zone. Very
Gotcha,
as like a psychological thing.
gotcha,
Or like put them on pikes or whatever. Like I don't remember exactly what it was, but basically he wanted to just display their decapitated heads,
gotcha.
and make it known who they were. But the reason, like, I'm sure if circumstances had been different, she probably wouldn't have felt the need to just fucking like stab herself in the throat with broken glass the way she did. Uh, but earlier she had actually, because none of the spies were told who each other were. Like they were all the only ones that they knew were themselves.
Yeah,
But she has seen Tom Cullen like a day or two earlier. So like she knew that he was the one spy that he couldn't figure out, and he was gonna get that answer out of her. So like it was like, all right, well, I guess I just have to die.
yeah, yeah.
But
That
like
whole
that's
scene where
fucking that chick's got some balls, man. It's fucking that was
well, I loved her performance here because after she gets caught and she does the whole like she's like I ain't changing in front of you people. I'm doing it in here, and she basically she just shit talks them the entire time.
also Julie Lowry's bits in that whole scene were pretty funny too.
Oh, she's just so unhinged the entire movie.
Oh yeah. And it's just like the whole bit where Lloyd's like, "Oh, you don't get out here in the next like 5 seconds, then you're gonna be doing your sermon to flag at her panties." And Julie's like, "Yes." What the
Yeah, it's
fuck?
just like what the.
Like she's such a weirdo throughout the whole thing.
I love when Flag boops her in the nose like later on, and just like he's just like, oh, that's a weird one. Just like away with you.
Yeah, he's just like, "You shut up."
Yeah, and it's just a boop. Like shut up.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So after that scene, kind of messed up too. The whole reason Tom gets found out too is just because he happens to bike past her as he's just going through Las Vegas.
Yeah, but ultimately it doesn't matter because he isn't caught.
No,
'Cause
he's basically
he was
on his way
literally
out by then.
leaving when he was seen. So that worked
It's
out for
kind of
Tom.
it's kind of
If
funny
anybody was
too.
gonna have a good ending, it had to be Tom.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too that when Flag figures out who he is, he's just kind of like, yeah, that's not that important. He just isn't even concerned.
Well, he did get pretty mad at Lloyd there for a second.
He got mad at Lloyd, but he guess he wasn't really even that mad. It was more just he needed to let out some steam, I guess.
Yeah, 'cause he trashed that penthouse. He's like, "Oh, how's that drink
Oh
good?" He's like, "It's
yeah,
all over the wall."
yeah. I did enjoy. I forgot to because we kind of we've kind of been avoiding talking about it, but the whole
The
everything with
Nadine scene.
well before that we have them escaping the Boulder, her and Harold on their motor scooter and her little pig scooter, which I'm like that's fun.
Yep.
Um,
He's riding a Harley. She's riding a scooter.
yeah, just the combo there is funny.
Hmm.
Tom's death is not Tom. Harold's death there was ridiculous there because he just sees anytime you hear the bird like in the background because throughout the movie Randall's like he takes the form of like a crow like throughout the film all
Mhm.
over the place. And anytime
Yeah.
you hear it, you know he's going to appear. But when he just like appears in front of Harold, then Harold just flies off the thing and kind of lightly rolls down the hill, and then suddenly he's all fucked up, and I'm like, "Yep, movie magic for you right there."
Mhm. Yeah, he got real fucked up from that.
And he's just like screaming. He's like, Nadine, come back. My leg's broken. My ribs
And
are
she's just
broken.
like, see ya.
She's like, I didn't like you anyways, and it just goes off.
And I think
Um,
in the book, like it was like a couple of reasons why they decided to do that. It was partially because if he betrayed them, like he's obviously a betrayer, so you can't trust him.
yeah.
But I think a big part of the reason is he didn't want anybody who messed with his woman in
Oh
that
yeah.
way, like around talking about it.
Well, it's all such a fuck. There's so much. Everything with Nadine is really fucked up. But there's like a whole subplot that she has to remain pure for Flag, and it's like it's implied that she did some messed up shit with a Harold there. That's all I'll say. Um,
Everything but that one little thing.
yeah, I'm just like, this is so. This movie has some dark elements where I'm like, it's kind of uncomfortable at times.
Oh yeah. Um, and then there's the scene where she finally meets up with him.
Yeah, and let's not mince
Boy, is
words.
that dark.
Well, let's not mince words. He assaults her, basically, right there.
Yeah. Well, she was into it at first until like he actually started going at it, and then she was like, "Oh, this is not good."
Yeah, and then the screams of just like horror. I'm like, this is. How did they get away with that? That's all I want to know.
Yeah, on television, like fucking cable.
Like, I haven't seen a broadcast of this in a while. Did they cut that scene in like the broadcast, or is that like straight up just still there?
I I couldn't tell you, but I have to assume that it was there.
God damn, that's just like shocking how that's the whole scene. And it's made even worse by every scene with her for the rest of the film. She is fucking traumatized.
Hmm.
And it's like, holy
Also heavily sunburned.
well, I mean, she had been out on the bike in the desert for I'm assuming a good amount of time.
And also like kind of like an added fucked up thing is like as she was like when her scooter finally died and she was walking to find him, she was singing "Baby, Can You Dig Your Man?"
Yeah.
And
And
then
then the next
after the assault scene, when he's driving the car with her in the passenger seat, he's singing "Baby, Can You Dig Your Man?" It's like, ugh.
yeah. It's like
Es-
well, he
Especially since like Larry was the one that she really wanted, so it's just like even more of like a fucked up thing.
yep. I mean, it makes sense for Flag because he's supposed to be evil as fuck, but like the whole time it's like Jesus Christ, this is dark.
Hmm.
Um, so then we kind of cut back to the main group is going off on their walk to stand essentially, and it's implied like throughout the thing like they make it very well known that one of them is gonna drop from the group at some point.
Yeah, because Mother Abigail told them that at the beginning of their journey is like one of you is going to fall by the wayside. I don't know who, but one of you isn't going to make it to Vegas.
Well, it's an interesting thing too. If you haven't obviously read it or seen ahead, you're wondering the whole time who's it gonna be. And because it's interesting too, because they are four very different people. Like obviously,
Mhm.
Stu and Larry are probably the most healthy of the three of the four, but for his age, like Glenn is pretty spry, and Ralph's, despite his size, is still pretty up there too. So
Mhm. Yeah. So the scene with the washout
hmm.
is so fucking cheesy for no reason. Like they are just silly as shit throughout the whole thing until Stu has his fall.
Yeah, like because this scene when they get to the broken bridge where they have to cross this chasm, um, the scene where they're where Kojak, they're like, Kojak, you see, go on, boy. And it's like, oh, if he can do it, we can all do it. So then they all start goofily jumping down. I'm like, oh,
Yep.
this is fun. At first, I was wondering, I was like, at first, like, part of me was like, because I hadn't seen this forever, I forgot how it happened. I was like, is one of them going to jump down? That's going to be like a surprise minefield or something.
Nope,
But
not
no,
quite.
no, thankfully, it's not fucked up like that. Well, because the whole time I was trying to remember who it was because I hadn't remembered in the longest time. And I was Kind of like I was wondering if it was going to be Glenn at first, just because he was older, but I'm like, no, no, that wouldn't make sense. That's not what they were going for here.
Mm-hmm.
Because then they end up doing the thing where it's like, all right, well, we're down here. I guess now we got to get back up. And Stu goes first, and he gets to the top. And then the second he goes to be like, see, that wasn't so hard. He has this like very like not bad looking fall, but of course it's a movie. He broke his leg.
Yeah.
Um,
Which that
and
was
it,
just very comical how it happened because he was literally at the fucking top and then he
yeah,
just slipped. He just
well,
slipped.
especially too, because then the previous couple times it was like he they like fake out that he's gonna fall like a few times, and then he gets to the top. He's like, yeah, and then he falls, and I'm just like, of course.
Yep. Typical.
But it makes sense because when I was rethinking about it, I'm like, of course Stu's the one that falls behind because he's got to be the one that's got to go back.
Yeah, because he's got his girl and his not his baby, but his baby.
Basically his baby at this point.
Pretty much.
Yeah, because I was like, because I remember that, and then you get that really sad scene where, well, not a sad scene, but kind of wholesome scene where, it's really funny because it's shown then after that they can get up and down that thing no problem, like repeatedly.
Yeah.
But Glenn comes back with a 6-pack of Coke, and I was like, oh, cool, product placement.
Yeah, he's like, I found a tour bus. They just had a bunch of Coke.
It's funny too, just like the amount of times they just find like this stuff that was abandoned, and it's just like, oh yeah, they had some Coke. They also had some beer, but I didn't want you mixing that with these. And he's like, arthritis pills, it'll help.
Yeah,
Don't
with a
have too many.
morphine base. They don't mention it specifically, but
Yeah,
they do.
he's like, don't have too many of those because you'll OD instantly.
And that's like one of those scenes that like whether it's this miniseries or whether it's the book, like the scene of Larry fighting for taking Stu with them and like trying to take care of him and shit, and them like everyone, including Stu, telling him no, like you guys have to go. Like it still gets me every time.
Yeah.
And like it has a lot less significance in the miniseries because of all the things I mentioned with Larry before, because like his journey, like he is easily the most developed character
Well,
in
yeah,
the
because
book.
he's kind of starts off as a piece of shit and then becomes like a
Yeah.
great character right at the end.
Yeah, for sure. And like the way that, and then when he comes to a head there, he's just like, I can't just abandon you. Like I can't do it. But
Yeah.
eventually his arm is twisted and he has to do it. But like he breaks down and cries like
Mm.
before he finally accepts it and everything. It's just, I'm just gonna say this. Anybody listening, if you haven't read The Stand, please go read it. Please do it.
Or at least listen to an audiobook.
The audiobook is very good as well. But yeah, that's actually the first time I read it was through the audiobook, but I have physically read it multiple times. I even read the original version last year before it was like before they re-released it as like the extended uncut version.
Yeah.
There were some fun differences too, but yeah, read The Stand. It's a fantastic story.
So yeah, eventually they do have to move on though, and they leave Stu behind, and you get the really kind of sad but somewhat wholesome scene too, where Glenn calls Kojak, and Kojak stays with him because he doesn't want to leave him behind.
Yeah, because Kojak has to fetch him rabbits
Yeah,
and firewood.
Yep. It's just the nod that like there's that really like nice nod where Glenn kind of nods to Stu, and he's like, "This is where our paths diverge," and he's because you know that they know they're never going to see each other again.
Yeah. Which also I want to point this out too, because we kind of skimmed over it before, but when Harold had his fall, he ended up shooting himself. But like when Harold had his fall, Stu like sensed it and was like, "Oh, something happened to Harold." And then when he shot himself, he also sensed that. But he didn't get even so much of the twinge when Glenn was shot. And like
Yeah,
Glenn's supposed to be like his best friend that he has like this really close relationship with. Yeah, nothing there. But both times something happens to Harold, he senses that. So that was weird.
yeah, I guess. I didn't even think of that. I always thought the fact that he sensed Harold's death was just weird and strange. To be honest, like I was like, that's such a weird moment.
Yeah, for sure. I think he even like tastes like the gun oil in his mouth. Like
Yeah,
fucking bizarre.
there's points in this where it's like it's trying to be a little too symbolic.
And I think that was just kind of their way of getting around like because in the book they actually stumble across his body and like find his like, because he actually like writes like a whole thing, like a whole like apology letter, I guess, about all the fucked up shit he did.
Yeah, because in the
In
in
this,
this,
it's literally just I'm sorry, I was misled. And that was the
yeah,
whole thing. But they, try to, I guess, save time, try to avoid the whole like finding of the body and everything. They just like, oh, I sensed it happened. He's dead.
yeah,
End of story.
yep. Um, Also, what fun thing throughout this entire like their little journey is Larry's got his guitar the entire time. He does not does he once play the guitar or does he just have it as a prop?
I think he just has it. It's just like, hey, look, I'm the musician of the group.
I'm the guitar guy because I always remember he just has it. I'm like that's
Mhm.
funny.
Um, so before we actually get to the group that is walking still, we should probably talk about Nadine's death.
Oh yeah, that scene. Yeah, because everything about that scene is creepy.
Yeah, well, everything about Nadine is creepy in general. Like, let's be real. Like, from the first point she's introduced in New York, she's creepy. Like the whole time.
Yeah, but like that because
Uh,
that scene happens during the because throughout that whole thing she's like just still traumatized and like Flag's doing his goofy like, oh, have you met my wife Nadine? Shake your hand, Nadine. Okay, guess not. She just like pulls her hand up. It's like, there you go. Um,
yep.
just,
And then like the way she puts her hand down afterwards, it's like I don't.
oh yeah.
I don't. It's weird because I can't tell if they're trying to like kind of emulate the way it happens in the book, or if they're trying to put reference to the fact that she's pregnant. I don't know.
Well, he says it a few times because he mentions that she's got a bun in the oven at one point.
Hmm.
I just always
Uh,
remember the creepiest scene there is like they showcase like when after Flag destroys the penthouse because he has his rage moment for whatever reason that he doesn't even end up caring about that much in the long run, which is bizarre. Um,
yeah.
he it shows him talking to Lloyd, and you can see in the background she's just kind of slowly walking towards the balcony. I'm just like, that's
Hmm.
weird. Like it's creepy when
Ominous.
you, yeah. Because at first I thought she was gonna jump, but then like they have their fight fight. I guess you could say out on the balcony where she kind of gets some of her senses back.
Hmm. Yeah, because she's like by this point like practically catatonic. Like she's
Yeah,
like the one like actual line we have before she gets to the point where she's gonna jump for the balcony is like they're getting on the elevator and then she's just like we're all dead and this is hell.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
and then it closes and like everyone's just kind of like what the fuck.
Well, because she it was weird because she like breaks out of her psychosis for a minute to say that, and then completely goes right back to it.
Hmm. Yeah, it was pretty wild.
But yeah, they have that argument, and he basically he essentially pushes her off the balcony within his like bit of rage.
Well, it actually like in the book he like literally throws her out of the window
Oh yeah, that probably honestly makes more sense.
because she just like keeps jabbing at him and jabbing at him like they're coming for you, they're gonna fucking kill you, you're done, bro. And
Yeah,
like he just eventually gets so pissed that he just picks her up and throws her out of the fucking off the fucking out of the window and almost instantly realizes like oh fuck I just killed my kid. Like
yeah, that scene's like always like crazy to me because it's like his just like no, like he doesn't even sound that upset. He's like no as,
damn it,
as she cuts to
how
a
am I gonna
dummy.
find a virgin in Vegas?
Yeah, I know, right? I love the scene though where they show her falling off the balcony, and it's like, oh, that's clearly a dummy. Like it's
Mm.
just, it's so stiff, just falling down. I'm like, yeah, that's where
And
the budget went.
the one random chick changing light bulbs on the street, just like, ugh.
Yeah, like the shocked look of horror, like, oh,
Oh
um,
no.
and then Flag's response is just like, well, shit. All right, anyways, moving on.
He's like, no,
Um,
all right, I still got this. I still got this. It's fine.
his acting just makes that part so well because he's so like nonchalant. He's like, okay, oh well, I'll figure it out.
Hmm.
So then we get to the confrontation scene where the Glenn, Ralph, and Larry finally make it to Vegas, and there's an armada waiting for them.
Pretty much, yeah.
This scene I remember so well just because the dialogue between like the three of them and the people from and, like Flag's group is just so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love the line with where they're like, "What? You should give us your social securities," and they just laugh in his face because it's like, yeah, that's totally a thing now.
Yeah, right. Like I don't think any of us is getting social security, buddy. Like,
yeah, and I like how they just make fun of the police officer guy the whole time.
yep. Yeah, they get thrown in the jail cell, and then Randall Flagg goes to visit Glenn, who was put separately for some reason.
It's like there was a reason for that.
Yeah, and like ultimately, like Flagg's doing he pretty much like repeating like the whole fucking shtick that he gave to Dana, like the whole like, oh, I'm gonna let you go and blah blah blah. It's all good. I'm a good guy. Um, and then like eventually it gets to a point where Glenn just starts laughing his ass off, and
Yeah.
like right in his face. It's just like, oh, you're just a nothing motherfucker, and like we made this a big deal about you, and look at you, you're nothing.
Well, because
And
before he makes
he gets real insecure about that.
well, because before there's like that iconic scene where like Glenn's talking to the cockroach and like being like, it's like when we're all gone, you'll still be here, and then it cuts to the immediate crush, with when Flag shows up.
Mhm.
And I think Glenn refers to him as the cockroach at one point, which help, but doesn't
Yeah,
help either.
running his little roach errands.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then of course he forces Lloyd to shoot him, which he of course does, even though he doesn't want to.
Yep.
And you just get that one scene where like Glenn's final words, where he basically tells Lloyd, he's like, "It's not your fault," or whatever.
It's like you don't know any better. Which is another weird thing where like it would have made a little bit more sense in context if um, Lloyd had been younger.
Yeah, yeah.
But what are you gonna do?
Because then we also
Um,
it cuts back over to Ralph and Larry, and it shows them hands through the cell, and they're holding each other's hands, and they just hear the
giving it
gunshot. That
our father.
Yeah, and they hear the gunshot, and they just go, "Was that?" And they're like, "Yeah." They don't even
Yep.
bring it up any farther.
And they just start praying. I mean, at that point, what else are you gonna do? I mean, shit.
And then they get so then they begin the trek into Vegas, and we then cut back to Stu, and Stu is not doing great. We get that iconic line of Stu where he's like, "Damn, I make it this far, and the flu is what gets me."
Yep. He's like, I'm gonna die of the flu after all. Ain't that a bitch?
Yeah, just that's such a funny
Kind
line.
of comical when you think about it.
Just talking to Kojak, and eventually he's like, "Hey, get out of here!" And he starts climbing up the hill, and then Tom shows up, and it's like, "Tommy, is that you?"
Yep. And
Um,
so back in Vegas,
well,
there.
before that, we got to also point out when Tom gets him up over the edge. He's like, we gotta get you out of here." He's like, "No. Wait, we got to wait for something." And he's basically implying that there's still something they have to see first.
Hmm.
But then, yeah, going back to Vegas.
Yeah, Ralph and Larry are getting brought out for a public execution, which pretty much everybody is required to be there for.
Yeah,
And they're going to be dismembered.
even though it's more like crucifying.
Kind of. I mean, he'd already been crucifying people. I think they're doing like a like a drawn in quarters thing, just without horses.
I thought it was like either that or it was like kind of like a rack situation where he's just going to stretch them until they came apart.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, we haven't even brought up Trash Can Man throughout this because he's kind of having his own character arc right now.
I mean, he didn't really do like a whole lot. I mean, he showed up in Vegas and he's like, "My life for you," which is kind of like his catchphrase. And he's doing good for a little bit, and then he starts having a mental breakdown, and he blows up all the fucking planes that they were going to use to bomb the free zone, and then he leaves.
I do love that scene though, where like he's escaping on his ATV, and the guy's like, he's like, trash, where you going, man? And he's like, fucking weirdo. And then he goes in, and he's like, he starts like thinking about it. He like looks at the plane. He's like, oh no, 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 no. And he cuts around the bomb, and he's like, oh no, boom.
Yep. But yeah, Trash is out there running his little roach errands, and he finds an A-bomb. And he's like, fuck yeah, big fire.
Oh yeah, because it's
And
like the because he eventually gets into like the nuclear facility on his ATV, which is just funny.
yeah.
Because there's also earlier that scene with Flag where he's like, Trash is eventually going to return. I want you to take care of him, like, but make it humane because I like the boy.
Yeah. I feel a certain kinship with him.
The irony of that going forward.
But yeah, then Trashy comes up and he's going through on his little ATV. I think like having it be like a required like witnessing kind of thing, like everybody has to be there to see the execution, kind of fucks him there, because if everybody had been out doing their own thing, like he probably would have been like cut off from getting that close long before.
Yeah.
But he gets like right in front of them all.
Because before that, we get that whole scene with Larry and Ralph are like basically being like, yeah, basically calling him a fraud and just like talking shit the entire time. And you get the one guy, excuse me, you get the one guy in the crowd who's like, "This is madness! Like, what are we doing?" He's basically like the one guy with sense in that crowd.
Yes, this isn't what Americans do.
And then he gets like shocked and then turns into a stone, I guess, on the floor.
Yeah, Julie Lowry trips over him and she gets shocked as well.
Yeah, crazy bitch goes out crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Trash just shows up with this giant A-bomb, and Flag's like, "Get him out of here! Get him out of here!"
He's looking fucking gross at this point too.
Oh,
like he's serious radiation poisoning.
He's just straight up, his face is melted. Like, because there's
he takes up the goggles and like his eyes come with him. He's just like, everything looks like, so funny.
Because Lloyd tries to like defuse the situation because Lloyd is like one of the few people that's nice to Trash Can Man throughout the film, and he's like, Trash is like, "You Lloyd, I can't see you very well. Everything looks funny." And they're just like trying to get him out of here, but then suddenly the hand of God shows up.
Yep.
From the electricity that Flag had let out to begin with, which I thought was an interesting little symbolic thing.
It's one of those classic. It's one of those themes that's always present in Stephen King's works, is that evil destroys itself.
Yeah. And then I just love the scene at the end though, where like the bomb's about to go off, and you just see Ralph and Larry are just kind of like accepting their fate, and they're just like, "We did it. We're coming home."
Yep. Come on home, boys.
And then Flag just slowly degenerates more and more until he finally turns into the crow. Is it implied that he survives, or is it supposed to imply that he dies there?
He absolutely survives. That's only like, well, I mean, like in the book, there is like an end scene of him like escaping and like coming across a bunch of indigenous people and becoming their king, essentially. But I mean, there's a bunch of stuff later on with like the Dark Tower and related works that he appears in later, where he specifically references The Stand. So,
gotcha. Okay. So yeah, then we cut back to after the bomb goes off, we cut back to Tom and Stu still in the same spot, and they just see the mushroom cloud in the distance, and they're like, "It's over." And
yep.
Ralph is not Ralph. Tom is sad because he basically realizes Ralph and Larry are dead.
Yep.
And Glenn.
Yep.
Then they make their trek back, and we get some fun Tom and Stu shenanigans where they're like in this car pushing it down a hill.
I'm sad they skipped their little Christmas thing, because in the book they like have like a whole like bit dedicated to Stu realizing that Christmas is coming up, and he like gets Tom a bunch of Christmas gifts, and that's just a cute little thing. Like honestly, like from the point where the A-bomb goes off to the end of the book, there's like 100 pages. Like it goes on for a bit after that happens.
Well, because we get to the scene at the random lodge that Stu's not doing good. Like the flu's definitely like progressed. But it's like a regular flu. It's not the flu. I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's just the flu. It's the regular flu.
Yeah, and that's where like we get that image of like Tom like it's like I got you a PB and J, Stu. Mom always said this will make you better. Please eat the
Yep.
sandwich, Stu. Please eat the sandwich. And I'm just like the scene is so unhinged.
For
Um,
real.
and then Nick appears because it's implied that he's been seeing Nick in his dreams. I'm assuming the book actually shows more of those.
Mhm.
But yeah, Nick shows up and he talks, and
Oh yeah, we didn't
we
really bring up the importance of dreams throughout this whole thing.
yeah, because the dreams are the whole like anytime they appear in the cornfield, like or like they get images of flag, it's like the dreams that are leading. They're dream weavers, I think is like the term they use.
Yeah, like they everybody pretty much who survives the flu is having dreams of both Mother Abigail and Randall Flagg, and that's why they all converge on Boulder and on Vegas is because they're kind of like just being it's like they're opposite ends of a magnet essentially, and some are getting drawn to one end, some are getting drawn to the other end, but
Mm.
that's essentially the purpose of the dreams.
There's also some that are kind of like stuck in the middle, sort of.
Mm. Well, it's also implied that there's a lot of people who didn't make it to either place by the
Yeah,
time all this shit happened, but
but yeah, in the movie, unfortunately, you only get really one scene of Nick guiding Tom, and it basically takes him to get the medicine that Stu needs to live. Um,
Mhm.
and then there's a really like there's an interesting like kind of like scene that they do where they cut to some time has passed and it's just Tom crying on a bench, and I think it's I'm assuming that was
Yeah,
supposed to kind of be a fake like a
or
sort of fake out.
yeah, that bait and switch, like making you try to think that maybe Stu died after all, and then like no, it's actually Tom is sad because he can't remember what Nick looks like, and that's the fucking heartbreaking.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a sweet scene though with Stu and Tom there, and then my favorite part about this world is that there's whenever they need some form of transportation, there's just conveniently a thing nearby that they can just borrow.
There's always a car or a motorcycle or a scooter or something
Or
available.
convenient truck with a snowmobile
Yeah, right.
full of gas too to get them where they need to go.
Well, I mean,
Um,
once they get into Colorado, I mean, they're gonna find snowmobiles. Like,
yeah,
there's no question.
I just laugh at that scene because it's like, ah, here's a convenient truck with exactly what they need on it.
Mhm.
But we get a nice scene where they're coming back to Boulder and they eventually get to the main gate out front, and they're like, "Is it them? No, it might not be them." And then they see the Kojak runs up, like, "It's them!"
Yeah, Stephen King's all happy. He's like, "Yay, it's Stu
Yeah.
and Kojak."
Um, but they get back and they find out uh, Fran had the baby premature, and they weren't sure if it was going to make it or not.
Yeah, because it has the flu.
Yeah.
But it
And
turns
we,
out it had just enough immunity
yeah, of course, of
to survive.
course. We get this whole scene where they see the baby there, and then uh, Lucy's the girl's name, right?
Larry's girl, yeah.
Wife, yeah. She shows up and she's apparently also pregnant. Um,
Yep.
and there's just a whole sweet scene. There's a very cute scene that's not really brought up, but Tom shows up and he's all happy to see them again.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know if it was trying to apply something, but he was having like a moment with Lucy, and it was kind of weird.
Yeah,
Like, I
I think
wasn't
it's just Tom
expecting
being
that.
friendly,
True,
but
but like the way it's played makes it seem like it's something more.
yeah, which would be really weird because that would just straight up come out of nowhere.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And then we get like a little montage of all the people we lost along the way.
hmm.
And this weird ethereal Mother Abigail is just like, peek, baby. She's like, what the
Yeah,
fuck?
that scene was
I
so.
laughed my ass off.
A lot of the effects have held up well. That was not one of them. And every time I see them,
It's
just
just,
like no.
peek, baby. He's like, what the
Like
fuck?
I'm like you tried there, but then no. Like that was that 94 showing right there.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but then it ends with a on a pretty happy note, even though the world's still kind of fucked. But
Yep.
at least there's hope.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that was the stand.
All 6 hours of it. I was telling Matt before we started. I started watching this last night at 7. I didn't go to sleep until 2 in the morning because I got
Yep.
started watching. You just can't stop. Like you have to finish it because you have to know where it goes.
Yeah, it's such a fun watch. Like honestly, like anybody who hasn't seen it, if you go on, it used to be Voodoo, now it's Fandango at home or something. Um, you can get the whole thing for $5 there,
Yeah, I think it's like 14 on Amazon Prime if you just want to use Prime.
and
It's not.
also like you can find secondhand DVDs on like eBay super cheap. You know,
Oh yeah.
you probably get it even less than $5 for a physical copy.
Hmm.
Actually, there's a 3 pack that comes with the Stand, the Langoliers, and Golden Years, all miniseries based on Stephen King stuff. So
Hmm.
that's probably the most well, one of the best ways to get it. I think there are other Stephen King packs that have more stuff, but yeah, you can usually find it in multi packs.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed it though. Rewatching it, it brought back a lot of nostalgia because like I did remember so many scenes from this vividly. I was like, oh yeah, yep, I remember this back in the day.
Mhm.
Um, Seeing this as a child and being traumatized at points because holy shit, there's some heavy fucking shit in this.
Yeah, for sure.
It was a nice nostalgic
For
watch though. I
sure.
did enjoy it. I'm glad I finally sat down and did it because it was worth the watch. That's what I will say.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely worth your time.
Yeah, it's crazy too when you think about the fact that that was Gary Sinise before, like he was Lieutenant Dan,
Yeah, for real. It's crazy.
like, before most of his iconic roles. It's crazy when you think about that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, we went over 2 hours. That's pretty good for us.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know yet what we're gonna do next week. Did we talk about that yet, or
I don't think we have. No.
okay, we'll probably figure
We'll
that out
figure it out.
off camera. But yeah. Anyways, guys, once again, thank you for joining us on Geek Addicts. You can find Geek Addicts on all the major podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcast and Spotify. And be sure to check us out over on the Superpod Network. That is superpodnetwork.com. Awesome site where you can find all sorts of different shows, videos, blogs. Previous episode, we'd mentioned Matt had been on an episode of Gaming Together. I was on an episode of Gaming Together this previous week. So be sure to check that out. And also be on the lookout for this month's game challenge is Mega Man X2. So yeah, anyone in the server that wants to participate, go for it because it is that should be an interesting one. But yeah, once again, guys, thank you for joining us, and we will see you all later.
Have a good one.